Hello to those of us joining on YouTube. Today's theme, as I mentioned during our readings, is connection. I recently found this definition on a blog, and I think it is absolutely spot on. Connection is what makes life feel real. It's the invisible thread that ties us to people, places, and even ideas. It's that spark when a conversation clicks, the comfort of being truly seen, or the shared laugh that bridges any gap. Connection reminds us that we're not alone, that someone else gets it, or that we're part of something bigger. It's messy, magical, and sometimes fleeting, but always worth it. So let's begin by thinking about connection to self. Self-awareness is key. Knowing ourselves is crucial to being able to connect to others in a healthy way. It is common for children, teens, and young adults to live trying to fulfill other people's expectations. And once we get our feet under us and establish a path in life, it gets busy, and sometimes we just go through each day doing all the things. Many folks do not make the time to get to know themselves as they truly are. But if we are in recovery, knowing ourselves is a big part of the deal. Being honest about what we feel and our part in things. In recovery, we connect with ourselves, some of us for the first time, and discover who we are underneath all the layers of other people's expectations, obligations, pressures, and past experiences. Even if a person isn't in recovery, time and attention are required in order to connect with oneself. Connecting with self is huge because it allows us to bond with our authentic inner being so that we can trust our instincts and be who we truly are no matter the situation. And there is great freedom in that. There was a woman walking down a dirt road in the country, and she heard the sound of approaching hoofbeats, and she turned to see a horse galloping toward her. And she called out to the man on the horse, "Where are you going?" And as he rode by, he replied, "I don't know, ask the horse." The horse is like our subconscious mind, which runs on past experiences. It's similar to a computer program. If we are simply going along with the program controls us and leads us wherever it feels like. Conversely, when we become self-aware, when we can connect with our authentic self, we start to become aware of our programs and can look at them more objectively. While this takes some time, once we become aware, we can control the program rather than it controlling us. Now, looking beyond self, we may come to realize that we have the means to connect with a power greater than ourselves. Listen to this young man's story from when he was a boy. On a summer afternoon, my father and I had gotten a canoe and decided to explore a huge lake surrounded by a beautiful park. Suddenly, I heard a buzzing close to my ear, a frantic, desperate humming coming from the right side of my head. I bolted up straight and I stared at Dad. He pointed toward me with his chin. "Don't move, he'll not bother you." And he kept rowing. And I thought to myself, what is he talking about? And I looked around it, and then I saw it. A bee on my shoulder. Actually, to be accurate, a yellow jacket. These are very large and aggressive bees marked by bands of black and yellow on their bodies. I lived in terror of bees and wasps and hornets. It was more than a fear. It was a pathological terror that I could not explain, and no one could cure me of it. I turned into a living statue. My eyes must have looked like saucers. I hissed at Dad to do something. He just rode and shook his head. He's tired. It's a hot day and all living creatures need rest. He's most probably been flying up the lake and needs to give himself a break. This is a pretty big park. Once he's rested enough, he'll keep going. Did my ears betray me, or was my father telling me to just let a large yellow jacket sit on my shoulder? I grimaced, but Dad just looked away and kept rowing. The terror gripped me like a cold hand over my heart, and I swiveled my head slowly towards the bee. Squinted a peek, and there he sat in all his living yellow and black glory, wings folded neatly against his body. And as I watched him, I was fascinated with how perfectly he was formed. Somehow my curiosity overpowered my fear and I relaxed. And no sooner had I done that, and he began fluttering, testing his wings, and then he flew off. I was able to track his flight for a few moments, and sure enough, he crossed the water and headed back into the woods. And I sat back and looked at Dad. "I told you," was all he said, and we rode away. More than 30 years have passed since that day. My father is no longer alive, but the memory of that moment of connection, has taken root in my heart. In the ensuing years, I thought long and hard about that tired little bee. I realized that for the first time in my life, I felt connected to something larger than myself. And that yellow jacket was part of the reason. I came to believe he was sent to teach me not to fear, that we are all one, all part of the same design the Creator provided. I realized that nature is an aspect of creation and that we are all the Creator's children, small or big, human or insect. No person is an island. I appreciate this man's reflection on connecting to nature, the universe, a power greater than himself, and his awe and wonder of being part of something bigger, connecting to something bigger. And this is just one of innumerable examples of what it can look like to connect to our higher power. Some other ways might be a conversation with higher power, a quiet time of listening, the awareness that there is more to life than just us, and many more. Another thing that struck me about this man's reflection was the relationship between him and his father. It was an unspoken and implied love and respect that was shared between father and son. And he mentions in the end that his father had passed on, but nonetheless, his dad was part of this connection with creation, part of this significant memory. Some folks consider loved ones who have died as their higher power. They look to their benevolent energy and guidance for strength. Sometimes deceased loved ones can speak to us from the beyond. Many people feel this way about the presence of cardinals or butterflies, that they are signs from someone they love in another plane of existence. Others believe that family and friends and pets who have died will be waiting to greet them when they die, like a welcoming or loving presence to guide them to whatever lies beyond this life. Regardless of how we think about our deceased loved ones, we can treasure the memories that we have had with them, soaking in the special moments and lessons we have learned, treasuring the time that we got to spend with them, which is never long enough. So we've touched on connecting to self and connecting to something greater than ourselves. So let's finish with connecting to others. Now, some of us are introverts who get their energy from being alone, and some of us are extroverts who get their energy from being around people. Regardless, connecting to other people is paramount for living our lives well, especially if we are in recovery. Mary Matos shares this story. When I was little, I lived in Trenton, New Jersey. A Polish family moved in on the same street as us, and there was a boy my age. I was so excited. Michael and I were about 3 years old. Michael didn't speak a word of English. His parents spoke broken English, and his grandmother, who we spent the most time with, only spoke Polish. But I didn't mind that we couldn't communicate with each other. We couldn't speak the same language. I just used to walk right into their house and take him by the hand outside to play. I used to talk to him and use hand gestures, and we played charades so that he could understand and learn. And by the end of the summer, he was speaking near perfect English. Unfortunately, I moved away shortly after that, so I don't know where Michael is today, or even if he remembers me, but I hope he's doing well. See, children aren't afraid of saying and doing the wrong thing. They are still connected to their authentic self. They don't overthink. What you see is what you get. If you've ever had a conversation with a small child, you realize this. That's why many of us are saying, oh my gosh, kids say the darndest things, because as adults, we wouldn't dream of saying what they said. Children are simply being themselves and carrying out the human instinct to connect with others, like Mary did with Peter. This is why connecting with ourselves is so important, because it affects our ability to connect with others. And as Mary proved, we don't always need words to connect with others. Sometimes a look or a smile can connect completely. Her and Peter started playing and using charades. In addition, laughter is a fantastic way to connect. Humor is a wonderful connector. And music, which has been called the universal language of connection. Another crucial aspect of connecting with others is being fully present. Focusing all our attention onto who is in front of us at the time. Active listening, mindfulness, it's not easy. Being fully present is difficult, and it takes a lot of intentionality. It's a lot easier to go on autopilot and just let our mind drift to what we need to do later, or being distracted by things in our physical environment. Commanding our minds to be fully present takes practice for sure. It's difficult, but not impossible. In her recovery program, Sandy was always sure to complete her service each week. Every Saturday, like clockwork, she went to the nursing home to paint the residents' nails for several years. Sandy's life became complicated, and she went through some very challenging times. Because of this, she stepped away from everything in her life that was not necessary, including her service work. After several years, the facility phoned Sandy and asked if she would be willing to return. Sandy gave an enthusiastic yes and made plans to visit the very next Saturday. Now, during this difficult time in her life, Sandy had an awakening of sorts, where she learned how to be grateful for the blessings in her life despite the hardship. Her whole outlook on life had shifted. So when she arrived at the nursing home and painted the residents' nails, She appreciated each person, asking questions and listening with attentiveness and care to whatever they had to say. This is a contrast to when she used to come out of obligation. Instead of checking off the box for doing service, Sandy was fully engaged with each resident. She looked forward to connecting with each individual, giving her undivided attention to each person, asking questions, and putting all of her focus on that resident. For Sandy, it used to be about getting her service done. She used to paint nails and have random conversations. Now, Sandy's focus is about seeing and being with each resident and connecting with them on a personal level with a little nail painting on the side. So we've heard a lot of stories today. We've talked about connecting on 3 different levels: with self, with others, and with something greater than ourselves. So we're going to take a few moments of silent reflection here, and I invite you to think about which one of these 3 areas of connection you might want to focus on in this coming week and what that might look like for you. So let's be silent for a few moments. Amen.